Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and I am very happy to be with you on this Tuesday for another episode of Weird News. Our first story is not weird in maybe our usual sense of weird, but as I've said before, weird doesn't always have to be like, wow, that's really weird. It can be like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. Or, that's kind of quirky, or that's just something, why didn't I know that? We did an episode a while back on the origins of graham crackers, which that story actually was kind of weird. But this one I stumbled on, I don't even remember where. It just popped up somewhere one day. And it is the story of a Filipino woman by the name of Maria Osa. Maybe you have heard of her. Arosa. And maybe you've heard of her, maybe not. I did not know her story, but she actually invented banana ketchup, which to me is a little bit weird, but she did it with very good reasons in mind. When you think ketchup, you think probably you think tomato ketchup, depending on how you grew up. Maybe the first thing you think of is banana ketchup. But it is a staple for, and one that is very nostalgic to many Filipinos all over the world. Magdalo V. Francisco Sr. is credited with mass producing banana ketchup in 1942, which made it a fixture in Filipino households. To this day, it's used as a condiment that accompanies many popular dishes. And I'm very annoyed that it's a man who's credited because, well, that always happens, right? Not always, but it often happens. You can even find some refined versions of banana ketchup. This is an article on a food website, a food blog, so that's why there's more focus on the food, but you can even find some refined versions of banana ketchup in modern Filipino cuisine. At Toyo Eatery in Manila, there is a banana ketchup using fermented bananas, banana peel vinegar, banana blossom, tomatoes, and spices. True to tradition, this is also served alongside some of the more popular dishes such as tortang talong, which is an eggplant omelet. But in order to really understand why banana ketchup is even a thing, you have to look to this woman, Maria Arosa. And as this chef who was mentioned earlier, Chef Navarra, says, growing up in Manila, we always knew the name of Maria Arosa as a pretty famous and busy street. After getting into food and learning about the history of banana ketchup, we stumbled on her story. So this woman, Maria Arosa, was a food chemist and an innovator, and she saw that the Philippines was heavily reliant on imports like tomatoes. At the same time, she understood and envisioned the vast potential of a great many products endemic to the island nation that, when used properly, could make the country more self-sufficient. She was passionate about a self-sustaining Philippines and made it her life's work to study native food and the use of fermentation and various preserving techniques to educate and uplift people in need. So that is very cool. I mean, that's very forward thinking. If it was mass produced in 1942, obviously this is before 1942. And that is very forward thinking, and I applaud her for that. So one day, she created a banana sauce with mashed bananas, vinegars, and spices. The brownish yellow color was not very appetizing, so a little red dye was added, turning it to what is today known as banana ketchup. But her story is far vaster than just this very interesting, mind you, invention. She moved to the United States at the age of 23. Some accounts say she was a stowaway. She was a government-sponsored scholar at the University of Washington in Seattle. There she earned a bachelor's degree and master's degree in pharmaceutical chemistry, as well as one in food chemistry. During her education, Maria spent her summer breaks working in the Alaska canneries. This is a woman who had a great sense of adventure, and I'm just impressed already by so many things. She had a vision of empowering the Filipino family, and so she launched Health, Heart, Head, and Hand 4-H clubs. Oh my gosh. Yes. Maybe that's why her name sounds vaguely familiar. And maybe you are thinking that name sounds familiar. She launched 4-H. Wow. This organization brought her and other educators into rural areas and barrios to teach women how to raise poultry and preserve food, as well as how to prepare and plan meals. By 1924, the organization had over 22,000 members. Part of her initiative was to introduce one of her inventions, the, Palayok oven, a clay oven intended for people who did not have access to electrical appliances. She used her background in food chemistry to run experiments in fermenting, dehydrating, and preserving native plants and animals. The innovations that emerged are said to still be used in laboratories today. Her ultimate goal was, again, to make the Philippines more self-sufficient and sustaining. So, obviously, she was very passionate. She was clearly very smart. She was active and worked hard to do what she saw was important. The Bureau of Science actually recognized her efforts and promoted her to the head of Home Economics Division and the Division of Food Preservation. Her work with the Bureau would send her all over the world to research canning and preserving techniques. So she actually, some of her most known contributions to the food world came during World War II. She was beloved within Filipino households for her banana ketchup, but became a war hero for her two other innovations, Soylac and Darac. Soylac is a protein-rich, highly nutritious powdered soybean product, and Darac, that's D-A-R-A-K, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize, is a rice byproduct that is high in B vitamins, thiamine, and vitamins A, D, and E. During World War II, Maria was a captain in Marking's guerrillas, a group of Filipino soldiers who fought alongside the United States against the Japanese. Legend says that she devised a system for smuggling Soylac and Darac in bamboo into Japanese-run concentration camps. These internment camps, which housed mostly guerrilla and American prisoners of war, were known for poor sanitation and lack of food. Many people perished as a result of malnutrition. So freedom fighters disguised as carpenters would deliver Maria's quote-unquote magic food, which saved countless POWs and civilians. This woman really was a hero. I'm impressed by her. Despite pleas from her family and colleagues to leave Manila during the war, she stayed until she was killed by shrapnel from fratricide in 1945. She was a scientist, an activist, a humanitarian, and a war hero who loved her country and dedicated her life to uplifting the Philippines through food innovation. Many of her recipes and experiments were compiled by her niece, Helen Arosa del Rosario, in a posthumous book called Maria Aroso, Her Life and Work. The book contains over 700 recipes, some of them unedited since Maria wrote them. That I think is just amazing. So often we dismiss, quote unquote, throughout history, women's work has been dismissed as somehow less. And yeah, okay, so she was, she worked with food. Some people might see that and dismiss it, say, well, she just, she invented banana ketchup, whatever. But she did it for really, really great reasons. And then she used that passion that she had around food to really make a very big difference during World War II. I did not know that about her. I think that I now want to do more research. Maybe look for that book, and maybe find some other books about her, other articles about her, because I find her to be fascinating. So not weird in the, weird sense of the way, but, banana ketchup sounds a little weird, but, was created for a good reason and led to life-saving activities. So that is my unknown history for you for the day. You may have already known that story, but if not, we all got to learn a little something new tonight. We are going to take our first break of the podcast, and when we come back, we'll be talking about some records that were recently set. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Before the break, we were talking about some unknown, especially to me, history, and I got to learn something new. For our next stories, we are back to the more, I don't know if you want to say traditional weird news kind of stories, but we are going to talk about, as I said before the break, records that have been broken. And if you are a listener of the podcast, then you know that I'm a little bit fascinated by Guinness World Records. My brother had a book on Guinness. Was it the Guinness Book of World Records, or was it a book about the Guinness Book? It doesn't matter. It got, he had it. I love to flip through it and read about all the different various awards and, or records. And I still find it fascinating what actually makes it into the Guinness Book of World Records. So it turns out that at a recent marathon in Toronto, this was a couple of weeks ago, 14 Guinness World Records were broken. 14 in just one marathon in Toronto. So what happened? Well, Guinness World Records announced that 14 records were broken at this Toronto marathon, including records. Okay, speaking of bananas, there's a picture of a man dressed as a banana. So, hey, see, don't tell me that I never give you segues. Including records for running while dressed as fruit, a vegetable, a cartoon character, a cowboy, and a supervillain. Do you see why I am fascinated by these records? Who comes up with them? How do they even come about? I mean, let alone get broken. It's just amazing to me. The record-keeping organization said 22 participants in the 2019 Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon attempted world records during the race, and 14 of the attempts were dubbed successful by adjudicator Spencer Camerano. Oh, I feel bad for the 8 who did not make their goal. The successful records for fastest half marathon were for running the race dressed as a fruit, dressed as a cartoon character, dressed as a cowboy, dressed as a vegetable, dressed in a martial arts costume, running the race with a spouse, running with a sibling, and skipping without a rope. The records for fastest full marathon were for running dressed as a supervillain, dressed as a tennis player, dressed in a full Quidditch uniform, good on you there, dressed as an Aztec, dressed in a baseball uniform, and dressed in a soccer uniform. Again, where did these records even, who was the first person that did this? I mean, you'd have to set the record at that point, right? Hey, I just ran a half marathon dressed as a fruit. My time is the fastest, right? Melvin Nayero, who achieved the record for fastest half marathon dressed as a fruit, said he was sponsored by Chiquita Bananas, and his banana suit earned him free bananas for a year. How many do you get for free bananas for a year? Do you get like one a day? Do you get a bunch a week? Do you just get them when you call up the Chiquita people and say, can you send me some more bananas? I really don't know how many free bananas you would get in a year. I'm always fascinated by that. Free X, Y, and Z for a year. Anyway, that's my question for the day, which I don't have an answer for. Let's just move on from the running marathons as fruit. I mean, seriously, people who run half marathons, people who run marathons, I say good for you. That's amazing. That's awesome. Wow. I've never run a marathon, but I think the last thing that I would think of in terms of running a marathon would be running it as a banana or running it as one woman, the one who set the record for running as a cartoon character dressed as Princess Jasmine from Disney's Aladdin, which I don't know, makes some more sense than fruit. And I guess I've seen people who run 5K in their tutus and you get the zombie runs and all those things, but I don't think my first thought would be there is a marathon. It's not themed. What am I going to dress up as? But maybe I lack an imagination. That is entirely possible. So let's talk about a few more records that have been set recently. And this one is in China, and it is something called, oh goodness, ERHU, Erhu. I apologize. I do not know how to pronounce that. 2024 Erhu players break Guinness record in China. And this was also a few weeks ago. It was the end of October was a good time for breaking records. A Chinese county achieved a Guinness World Record when it assembled 2024 Erhu players into a single ensemble. This county, which is in the Hebei province, gathered those 2024 people to play the traditional Chinese two-stringed bow instrument in a single mass performance. Oh, play as in instruments. I was thinking they were playing a game. Clearly, I don't know Chinese vocabulary. The ensemble performed songs, Guang Mingjing and Me and My Motherland. The performance beat the previous record of 1,490 Erhu players set in 2004. They didn't just beat it. They knocked that one. I was going to say they knocked it out of the water. They blew it out of the water, knocked it out of the park. I can get my colloquialisms correct, right? It turns out that the Erhu dates to the Tang dynasty, which was from 618 to 907. So this is an ancient instrument. And yep. And I mean, this one I can understand more. You know that there's been mass gatherings of people playing a certain instrument and you're like, we can do better than that. Let's see how many we can gather. And then you blow them away with 800 more people, almost 800 more people than they did in the first, or in the record that you beat. Let's move a little closer to home. We've done Canada, we've done China, and now we have an Idaho man who breaks 2 Guinness records hitting a tennis ball. Okay, 1 tennis ball, 2 Guinness World Records. That's impressive. This is more recent. This is from November 11th, and an Idaho man broke those 2 Guinness World Records for alternating hits of a tennis ball with a tennis racket. David Rush, who has more than 100 Guinness World Records titles, said he took inspiration from his tennis idol, Roger Federer, when he attempted the 30-second and 1-minute records for most alternating hits of a tennis ball with a tennis racket. Okay, what do they mean by alternating? Let's see if they explain that more. Rush, whose record attempts are aimed at promoting STEM education, good for you, said one of his tries was disqualified when the ball hit the rim of the racket, but on his second attempt, he was able to beat both records. Rush managed 92 hits in 30 seconds and 182 hits in 1 minute. So he almost perfectly doubled. Almost. He should have gotten 184 for that 1 minute, but I can't. I have terrible hand-eye coordination, so I would hit maybe 1 in 30 seconds. That is not going to win me a Guinness Book of World Records. I should look up and see what is in my wheelhouse that I could actually attempt to achieve in the Guinness Book of World Records. I don't know. Would it be crocheting while podcasting? Would it be, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. I could crochet while podcasting while wearing a banana suit. I wonder how long I'd have to do that. I wonder if I was the first person to do it. You could set the bar low. I crocheted for a half an hour while doing a podcast while wearing a banana suit. And nobody else has done it. I submit this to the Guinness Book of World Records. How does that work? If you know how that works, let me know in the comments, because I have never ever, I don't remember if that was in the book my brother had when we were children. If it was, I didn't pay attention to that part. I just like to look at the different records and different categories, as apparently I still do as an adult. Let's go ahead and take our second break of the podcast. When we come back, as you see in the title of this episode, we'll be talking about animals doing stuff. Weird animal stories, one of my favorites. Stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. I don't know if I have spoken about it on this podcast, but I certainly have on other podcasts, especially the entertainment and social media news podcasts that I really like. I call it ogling of royal babies. I will pretty much always click on stories that involve pictures of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis, and Prince Archie. So this is kind of royal babies, but not exactly what you might think when you think royal babies. These involve puppies. And this also is not a story about English royalty, which are the pictures that I was just talking about that I always click on, but these are from the late Thai king's old hound. So new royal puppies have revived the bloodline of the late Thai king's old hound. And to honor the king's death, his son gave the green light to a project to revive the bloodline of the beloved Kun Thong Deng. The puppies they're cute. They have that, they have that wrinkly face, and so 3 of them are brown. 2 of them are black and white with brown on their faces. I guess the 3 brown ones have some white as well on them. But 4 years after the late king of Thailand mourned his beloved pet dog, the country has shown off 8 new puppies related to the old royal hound. Well, there's only 5 in that one picture. Where are the other 3? Where are the other 3? King Bhumibol Adulajej, who died on the 13th of October in 2016, was smitten with his furry friend Kun Thong Deng, who passed away the year before his owner due to old age. To honor the king's death, his son, who was crowned this year after a lengthy period of national mourning, gave the green light to a project to revive that bloodline. And still only seeing 5 puppies, the same 3, and they are so cute. Why are puppies so cute? Kazakhstan University used artificial insemination with frozen semen from 2 of Kun Thong Deng's sons that had been stored since 2005. Not something I ever would have thought of, to freeze my dog's sperm, but I also don't have royal bloodline for dogs. Just wouldn't have occurred to me. 8 healthy puppies have been born. First, 5 arrived in August and 3 in September. They were all shown off for the first time, marking the 3rd anniversary of the late king's death. In a statement, the university said King Maha, oh my goodness, I am so sorry, Vajiralongkorn kindly wished that Kuntong Deng's lineage be extended so that the people may remember late King Bhumibol Adulyadej and Kuntong Deng. The university performed the insemination on 2 royal dogs in April and July. 5 puppies were born in June and 3 more were later born in September, respectively. The 8 puppies are healthy. What I don't see in this article, and I thought I just missed it the first time I went through it, was what kind of dogs they are. And I don't know enough about dog breeds, but you know those dogs that have the little squishy face with all the wrinkles on, you know, one looks like he's actually wearing a hood. He has such cute little wrinkles. If you know what kind of dog I'm talking about, or if you know this story, please let me know, because I do not know enough about dogs. I know what kind I have, and that's all. I know a few others by sight, but I am not sure. I mean, it's a hound. It said that in the article. Anyway, so puppies reviving a bloodline. That's a very cool way to honor your late father. My father, A, is still alive, thank goodness, and B, did not have a royal bloodline or a pet of any kind, so I'll have to think of another way to honor him many years from now when he passes. I'm not letting him go anytime soon. More animals doing stuff. So a Kentucky zoo, employees from a Kentucky zoo had to round up some escaped emus. Oh, emus. They're actually kind of little emus. I always think of emus as taller, but these are, not counting their head, just their body is about knee height to one of the employees I see in the video. And employees at a Kentucky zoo rounded up a quartet of emus. Now I'm picturing them playing like violins and cellos. A quartet of emus that escaped from an Amish farm and went wandering near a busy highway. Not good plans, emus. I know you grow up on an Amish farm, but you should not wander near a busy highway. Maybe you don't know about traffic. Mick McGill, who is the animal management director at the Kentucky Down Under Adventure Zoo, said phone calls started coming in about 3 p.m. from drivers who spotted the emus wandering loose near the L&N Turnpike in Horse Cave. McGill said he and his head zookeeper, Harley White, did a quick check to make sure the emus didn't belong to the zoo. It's probably a good first step. Are they our emus? And soon determined that the large birds had escaped from a nearby Amish farm. McGill and White headed over to the location to attempt to capture the birds. They were pretty friendly, he told WNKY TV. We've had quite a bit of experience rounding up emus here at the zoo. You get behind them and wave your arms, and that's the best way to do it, apparently. And then you hope they don't kick you. Yes, absolutely. They're not a herding animal, so it's not easy to keep them together, he said. McGill and White were able to guide the emus back to the farm safely. I took my head zookeeper with me, guided them back in, rounded them up, and got them home, he said. That's not the nuttiest thing I've done in the last 24 hours. Oh, but he does not say what is, or the article does not report what is the nuttiest thing he's done in the last 24 hours. Backing up, I am intrigued by the Kentucky Down Under Adventure Zoo. He said emus are an Australian bird, so I assume other animals would be as well. They are Australian birds, which makes sense as to why makes sense. If Kentucky Down Under, I would assume Australian animals. That seems to be backed up by them checking their own emu enclosure, whatever, to make sure that their emus hadn't escaped. Oh, wandering emus. That sounds like another children's book that I should add to that list of children's books someone should write about animals doing stuff. One more animals doing stuff story, and this is the story of a fish. A British man who lost his wedding ring while swimming was reunited with his ring thanks to a couple of beach visitors and a helpful fish. That fish should get a reward. Dan Levine, 44, said he was swimming in Penzance, Cornwall, England, when the custom wedding ring designed by his wife fell off his finger. Oh dear, that would make me not happy. He said, I put a post on Facebook asking for people to get in touch if they found it, snorkeling or spearfishing, but didn't really think I'd see it again. I was gutted. Una had handmade it. We've been married 13 years. When I told her I'd lost it, she was upset too, he told Cornwall Live. They've been married 13 years, so is that part of an unlucky thing? I don't know. Levine's Facebook plea eventually reached Gary and Emma Spires, who were visiting the beach just one day after the ring was lost when they saw a fish splashing around in shallow waters. Gary said he kneeled down and the ring was nestled under the water beneath a little ledge. He might not have seen it had it not been for that little fish. Levine thanked the couple and the helpful sea creature in a Facebook post. He wrote, "Thanks, little fish." That's a very sweet story. I kind of wish the fish had retrieved it and brought it up in his mouth and spit it out on the sand. I don't know. I live in a world of made up children's stories, but very happy that Mr. Levine got his wedding ring back and that it was only missing for less than a day or about a day. That is very good news. So I'm glad he got it back, and thanks to some people. Facebook is amazing, right? Social media is amazing when it actually helps with things like this. So people see a story and then good things happen. I don't know. I'm always impressed by that sort of thing. Let's go ahead and wrap up this episode on the note of a happy ending with a ring and a little fish that should have gotten a reward. I don't know what it would be, but he needed to get... In my children's book, of course, he got a reward at the end of the story. Time to wrap it up, right? Thank you so much for listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. Join me again next time. Hope you're having a great week, and I hope that you stay weird.